Well, let's kick it off, gentlemen, shall we? I'm fired up. It's really hard to think about anything else but tapping in this interview. I've been pumped up all day for this. Seriously. Whoo! Matt Earl, welcome to the Elite League podcast.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming on. Question for you. You got a lot going on right now, I'm sure. Let's talk about your main focus in business. What are you doing as a day-to-day?
In business.
Let's tap into that a little bit.
Let's talk about my main focus in life.
Let's do it.
First.
I'm down.
All right. So my main focus in life is to be the best husband and father I can be.
What does that look like to be the
That
best?
looks like just living from my heart.
Yeah.
Just pouring it out there to my wife and my children and just trying to be a good human. That's my motto.
It's amazing.
Be a good human.
You got kids?
I've got 3 kids.
3?
Yeah.
Are they all local?
2 are local. Actually, one's off at college. The other one is local for the moment. She's studying the MCAT, so she's going to be a badass MD, PhD. And my son is off in college. He'll be back in a week or so for spring break. And my oldest daughter, singer-songwriter, who's going to be playing Austin pretty soon. Very cool.
Man, that's cool.
Yeah.
They're covering quite the vast array.
Oh, yeah. Well, as a father, all you care about for your kids is happy, healthy. But happy, healthy, following a path they want to follow, gold mine.
Now, has this always been your focus?
To be a good human? Yeah.
Has.
Yeah.
Well, and what does that development look like for you throughout the years? Were you ever a certain way, and then over time you've kind of let those aspects of you kind of fall to the wayside and evolved into something different?
Yeah, not really. I'm a fairly focused person.
Yeah.
In my art form, which is movie making, television, and film, I just want to get out there and move the needle, make a project that's going to get people to look at it in a different way and go, well, maybe there's 2 sides of this coin,
How are you able to do that with your particular area of expertise?
Just create projects that I'm passionate about. Like I have a little indie movie that I'm getting off the ground now. And my lead actor, Gabriel Luna, is here at South by Southwest. Just had a premiere the other night, a movie called The Astronaut, which I flew back from Chicago doing some added scenes on my current project. Flew back to see his premiere, and pretty cool film. And we have this project called Fronteras, Borders and Boundaries, and it's a little indie movie. And it's literally about, to be honest, America right now is going through some troubled times. Not to get too heavily into the politics of it all, but I think that I through my art, I want people to look at things a different way. And we have a little indie movie that I'm looking for financing now. And it basically is a young man, 17 years old, in Mexico, forced to join a gang. Because of this situation, his father gets killed. His mom has a distant cousin living in Austin who's an immigration attorney who used to work on the border to help people come across. And now he's in Austin, and the mom says, we're out of here. We've got to get a better life. So that's the whole thing, is that I've done a lot of research, and as messed up as this country is sometimes, especially now, it's very divided. People in other countries around the world are just trying to get to what was the American dream, just try to get a better life for their families. So once again, not to get too heavily into the politics, you look at what's going on and you think, okay, this country was formed on immigrations. We're all immigrants from some part. So to say, shut down the borders, they're all criminals, bullshit. People are just trying to have a better life for their families.
When looking at the big picture, that is the absolute truth. Yes. So with this indie film, is this to kind of take the blindfold off a little bit? on that particular piece?
I don't know if it's the blindfold as much as it's just looking at a subject from a different standpoint, you know? And like say, all I'm trying to do is just to move the needle, you know? And like say, my career has been based on being a director for hire, director, producer for hire. I mean, like, okay, Paramount, NBC, Universal, CBS, whoever wants to hire me, boom, we want Matt Earl Beesley to do this episode. Great. I'll get in there and I'll tell the story. Even when I did like 22 episodes or so of CSI Miami, and you think, okay, that's a procedural. I still look at each script that I get involved in and say, okay, who am I going to want to hang my emotional hat on? And on a CSI Miami, it could be the person killed before the opening credits start. But through flashbacks, you learn about that person and you try to build some humanity into that, who that person is. So that's what I gravitate to as an artist, is trying to get people to look at something a different way, drop into people's lives, and just, like I say, move the needle, get them to think a different way.
Where does that intention come from? Have you always been like that?
Pretty much, yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
And this is your creative outlet and where you get to have the influence?
I hope so, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. When did you... Go ahead.
So when you were talking about the whole getting people to see things a different way,
yeah,
I wholeheartedly agree, because I think we're just bombarded with so much information and things that we see. Movies and stories have a way of conveying a message that is very pure to the people who are making it. Because when you were talking about that, I remember the movie American History X, where you have the story about someone who is essentially a neo-Nazi, right? Goes to jail, comes friends with a black person, and then changes his whole entire view on racism and what he's been doing, right? And I think, because there's just so much stuff out there, movies can give us a different perspective, can enlighten us. And that's the beauty about storytelling, is just the way that it conveys that story where people can connect and relate to, versus just facts that people tell you on the media, right? This is what happened, so-and-so killed so, but there's no background. There's very little story behind it.
Right.
Right. And then a lot of your mindset is formed based on those things you hear, right? Like, all these people are coming in our country, taking our jobs and all that stuff, right? It's just a narrative.
Right.
Movies and stories have a different way of changing those narratives.
100%. Like, I think that what we do as filmmakers is literally no different than 8,000 years ago, a bunch of people sitting around a campfire saying, once upon a time. We just have really cool tools to be able to tell these stories,
Yeah.
And I think, like I say, you're talking about what's going on in the media and stuff. I mean, what do you believe? Because like you said, you're so bombarded that I think you just have to, as a human, you just have to try to find a path that leads you in a direction like, do I believe this or do I believe that,
Well, the beauty about movie making is that the media, a lot of times, they're producing news for like eyeballs, right? They're producing news headlines. It's like, what is going to get the most attention, versus when people make movies, it's like, how can I convey this message that I want people to see, right? It's not about whether it's going to get a lot of attention. I mean, you want to get the attention, but it's for the attention, for the right attention.
Right.
You want to, versus like, this is going to generate more views and it's going to drive our, your ads, ads, people are going to spend more ads with us, and et cetera, et cetera. Obviously there's a business aspect to movie making, but I think most movie makers, if you would ask most, there's a purity to it, or there's a kind of an art form to it that's very close to them. Otherwise they wouldn't do that, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Well, like I say, storytelling is just trying to shift the energy a little bit,
Yeah.
And I heard somewhere that some of the best movies of all time were the ones that the director and the producer, it's emotionally tied to them. Whereas the mass-produced movies that are just made to get people in the seats, they're not that great. How true is that?
Well, it's funny. I mean, there's a lot of very popular movies that have been very good storytelling. I believe that I always want to tap into the emotional stories. So sometimes when the big action films, and I've certainly done my share of those big action films, I mean, unless you can gravitate toward a character and move with that character, and hopefully that character will start at one level and then learn something and evolve. So that's what you want to do. You want to take the journey. Like, I mean, trust me, there's nothing wrong with big popcorn movies. You know, I've certainly done my share of those, but it's like the little personal movies, the ones that come out toward the end of the year are the ones that excite me because they're telling a personal story, you know.
Being on set from those two contrasting places, can you notice a difference in the ambiance?
No, I mean, I think it's interesting. Like Clint Eastwood was one of my mentors. I did a bunch of movies as an assistant director with Clint, and he always told me, it's like, look, it's anybody that's in the film business probably wants to be there because there's easier ways to make a living. I mean, the guy serving you a coffee in the morning, he's in the film business, you know. Now, could he work at, I wouldn't say the S word here, but because we have a lot of good coffee shops in Austin, you know, I haven't been to one of those places since.
This is a safe space.
Yeah, right. No, but I mean, it's literally, it's about, you know, moving people in a direction that the people that are in the business want to be there. Like Clint told me, he said, look, as a director, you want to come in with a game plan. You want to know that your game plan is going to tell the story. Okay. But once again, if the guy handing you a cup of coffee in the morning has a better idea, he's a collaborator. Yeah. Don't show up as a director and think you know everything there is to know, because you're not very smart. Because you have all this group of people. I mean, it's a collaborative art form. If you don't want to collaborate, then go paint a picture, and that's great. Or go write a book. You know, I'm sure you're going to have editors help you with that book anyway. But as a filmmaker, people in this business normally want to be in this business, and so just understand that it's a collaborative art form, and you want to be around people that are going to help you.
And because they're interested in it, they want to be there.
Absolutely,
they're going to put in their efforts and their thought process to, hey, maybe we should do this.
What about that?
So it's important to listen.
Yeah, absolutely. And as a director, I mean, ultimately it's your decision. I mean, you know, I'll come into the set. I'm very humble about it, and I'll say, here's my idea for the setup. You know, you on a TV series normally you sit around, you kind of like throw the words off the page, make sure everybody understands the script. And then from that point, okay, I say, okay, here's what we have in mind. And you start kind of working the actors. I mean, the Chicago fires that I do, sometimes there's like 15 actors in the room. And you've got to figure out, by looking at the script and working things out, who's going to be where, who's going to talk to who, and how the best way to shoot it. And so you go through that process of piecing it together, you know?
Yeah.
And then you were asking earlier what the difference in one of the big movies and the smaller independents. It's just the amount of money you throw at it. You know, I mean, I've been on a lot of movies where there's the budget's like just whatever it takes, you know. And then I've been on some stuff where it's like, you got to finish this in 5 hours today, or it's not going to work, you know.
Sure.
And you do whatever it takes, you know.
I'm sure it's, of course, nice to be associated with some of the best movies, arguably, of all time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What are you most proud of as far as what you've accomplished in the industry?
What am I most proud of? Wow. I would. Are you talking about individual movies? Or are you talking about
for you as a person?
For me as a person, as not being a person. Well, I'm a person, so I don't have a choice.
You're
That's
the side of things.
Yes. It's funny. I've directed maybe 150, 160 episodes of television. And like I say, every time I step on the set, I get butterflies. And so I think what I'm most proud of is every time I step on the set, and literally I just got off one day before yesterday, I have to feel like, okay, this may be the last time I ever get to do this. Because you never know. I mean, tomorrow's not promised. You never know what's going to happen. So here I am. getting to tell the story with this community, and what's the best way I can tell the story? So what I'm most proud of is stuff that just leading from my heart, and like I say, when I'm watching a performance with an actor, I get to the point where I'm just watching the actor go through the process and saying, okay, do I believe this person is going through this? And 9 times out of 10, if they're prepared, I'll let them do their thing. But then the minute I don't believe it, then I'll lean in and say, have you thought about this? And you always want to be very, you want to be collaborative. You want to be in a situation where you respect the person who's doing the work. I could never be an actor. I mean, think about an actor's job. Hey, Dad, what'd you do today? Well, today I was a firefighter. Next week I get to be a serial killer. I mean, what kind of life is that? I have such respect for what they do. They get to play. They get to invent. They get to be someone else for this moment in time. And I think that's fantastic. I have such respect for that. I don't think I could do that because of my dyslexia. I probably would have a hard time remembering the lines.
A small roadblock.
Right.
Yeah. So that's where your wisdom comes in, I would say.
Experience and wisdom, yeah.
Because you can sense it right away when that actor's not prepared. And you say, hold on a second.
Well, not prepared is something is like, I've been lucky. Like I say, I always move into each scene with I've been on shows where you go, oh man, you're not going to get along with this guy. He doesn't like directors or whatever. I go, okay, well, thanks for the detail. I appreciate that. And then you just go in and just be yourself. And it's either going to be accepted or it's not,
Has that ever, do you recall any specific instances where it hasn't been accepted? You don't need a name drop here. Has that ever come up?
No, not really. Like I say, I've been on shows where it's like, oh, and it's been fine. I've been on shows where people said, oh man, this guy, we won't listen to you or whatever. It's okay. Thank you. And then I'm just me. I just go in and do me and hope for the best. And it usually works out very well.
It's good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like you said, it's a collaboration, right?
100%. So you come in with a game plan. Like, for instance, you come into a scene and you throw down the words and you go, okay, here's my idea. Okay, so this character, maybe you'd come to the door and you kind of set it all out. And then the actor may say, okay, what if I came to the window? And you have to know that script well enough to go, yeah, let's give that a try. Or you have to say, that's a good idea, but 3 scenes from now, I have you come into the window because of this. But we can certainly try it. And you just kind of like say you collaborate, you work it out,
Wow. Yeah, so collaboration. It seems to be a theme here.
Absolutely.
Listen up, wing lovers. This ain't your average chicken wing. This is a Michelin-starred masterpiece. 24 years in the making, Sabalicious Wings brings you the ultimate umami explosion. 22 expertly blended seasonings, dry rubbed to perfection, and finished with secret sauces that hit you with just the right heat on the back end. Don't just take our word for it. Order now at Sabalicious Wings ATX on Instagram and taste the magic for yourself. Man, this is good. Really getting it.
You think?
I feel like I'm stepping into your
My
truth
first
here.
podcast. We'll see how I'm doing.
This is so cool. This is great. So you're on set, right? Has anything ever gone completely awry when you're on set? And how do you handle that? How do you manage that?
You stay calm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah, it's a very Joe Dispenza thing, right? You say, be calm, believe, behave. I came up to the ranks as an assistant director, and the assistant director's job is kind of a managerial thing. I didn't get in the business to be an AD, but when I was with this little company in Dallas where I grew up, the boss had a big thing about shooting in Europe, and all the assistant directors over there were directors in training. I mean, I went to film school to become a director, and then I fell into being an assistant director. But when I moved to LA, I thought, okay, I'll move to LA, become an assistant director, and work my way into directing. The problem is in Europe, maybe the assistant directors are directors in training, but in Los Angeles and the film business in the States, the assistant directors are managers. So what your job is there is to literally go in each day, have a plan, but go in each day and go, okay, what could possibly go wrong today? And try to anticipate what can go wrong. And be calm with all that, because the crew is looking to the assistant director to kind of guide them in the right direction, and then the director to be the artist on the set with the collaboration of everybody else.
And not to mention, some series, TV series, you're the director for a lot of episodes, and some it's 1, 2, 3.
Oh, absolutely.
So how do you just jump in there?
Well, you do a lot of research. You make sure that I didn't get onto Chicago Fire until like season 6, and that show's on its 13th season. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So first of all, I was thinking, well, why did I get to jump in 6 years in? Well, obviously someone spotted my work and go, okay, let's give this guy a director shot on our show. And then it's worked out, because as a guest director, you're really only as good as your script. You get the script, you hope for the best. I've been really lucky on my my trajectory as a director to get really great scripts. And so, but what happens is as a guest director, if the script's not that great and you try to elevate it and it doesn't quite work, then they always look at it as like, that director did not elevate the material. So there's always that pressure. And trust me, I put more pressure on myself than anybody else. So it's okay,
When we look at the big picture of, let's say, quote unquote, Hollywood, right? Based off what the general public might know versus what somebody knows that's in it, fully immersed in it, what would you say is the biggest misconception amongst the public from what it's actually like?
About Hollywood?
Yeah.
It's hard work.
It's hard work.
Yeah.
How so? What's the hardest part?
Well, I mean, they always say the directors that it's been Spielberg is one of my mentors also, because I've worked a lot of work with him, and it's been attributed to Spielberg and it's been attributed to Martin Scorsese, and I'm not sure which one actually said it, but they basically said the toughest part of the director's day is getting out of the van in the morning or getting out of the car to go do the work,
Why? How come?
Well, how come? Because it's like the minute you step out, there's a bunch of people coming at you, asking you all sorts of questions,
Yeah.
And you never want to bullshit anybody. You just say, answer what you can. And you say, you know what? I don't know the answer to that. Let's work that out. So once again, it's about being humble, about coming at it from a standpoint of, okay, I don't know that one.
Well, I'd say that what you're doing is certainly in art form. There's no question about that. You must have some artistic capabilities, I'd say more so than the general public. Where else does that show up in your life?
I think the way I live my life.
That is an awesome answer.
Yeah.
We got to crack that nut. Come on, man.
I don't know how to answer that other than the fact that it's just the way you proceed through life,
Well, you got the very structured people that are rigid, like super time sensitive and everything. They're business.
Right.
And you have art, which is more of a flowing thing. You've got to get creative, right? It's a different approach. So what does that look like as far as a way of life?
Well, it's interesting you say that, because my wife Tamar is she's a successful entrepreneur, and since I moved to Austin like 5 years ago, most of the people I've met are in that world of entrepreneurism. And I was at a party one time where I walked by this guy who I knew, and he says, "Well, I'm not very artistic," and it just stopped me in my tracks. And I turned to him and I said, "What did you just say?" And he goes, "I'm not that artistic." And I went, "Dude, you know what you do as an entrepreneur? You create, and then you put it out in the world. There's nothing more artistic than that, Yeah. Artistic is a way of life. There's a great Rick Rubin wrote a great book. I think it's called The Artist's Life or The Artist's Way or something. It's an amazing book, and Rick is a very successful music producer, and he wrote this book about how you go through life and how If you're working at a factory, that also could be creative, So it's just about putting your energy into maybe looking at things a different way, or maybe going, okay, maybe if I tweak it this way or that way,
Looking back when you first stepped into this space, did you think you would have done all the things you've done already? Or did you have that sheer confidence? You said, you know what? I know I'm going, quote unquote, to the top. This is all what I'm all about. Did you ever think you'd be here?
It's interesting what happened. My background is my dad was a school teacher in Dallas, and I definitely grew up with the right parents, because all they said to me, they said, look, we don't care what you do for a living. Just find something that you get excited about.
Excitement.
And do not be outworked. Work harder than anybody else. And that's what it takes. I mean, I think growing up in Dallas, Texas as a kid of a school teacher, I mean, the chances of me having a successful career in Hollywood was pretty slim.
Sure.
But my dad, I got lucky because my dad was a guy who just loved movies. And I remember when I was a kid watching this movie called The Great Escape. It was a big war movie with Steve McQueen and all these big stars. And it was kind of based on a true story about this prison camp and these people trying to escape from this prison camp in Germany during World War II. And I was watching this movie. They used to play it over 2 nights. And that was 2 nights in the school year that I could take. I can push my homework off because I got to see that movie, and we saw it every year. And I remember watching the movie and asking my dad, "How does this work? How does this happen?
Yeah.
How do the actors know what to do? Who figures out where to put the camera?" And so I had the right parents. They just said, "Look, just get something you're excited about and go for it." And so I said, "I want to do this."
You were able to find what excited you at a young age.
Absolutely.
And you think it's because your parents said that to you. Do you remember them actually saying that?
Absolutely.
Like, find your excitement. Do the hardest work.
And I do the same thing with my kids. Like my daughter's a singer-songwriter in L.A. My middle daughter is going to go to be an MD, PhD. She's got this whole mindset. My young son is a soccer player, badass soccer player, and he's off in college now. So just find something you're excited about and go for it.
You know how hard it is for a lot of people to do that, to unwaveringly choose that exciting path and stick with it and do it relentlessly? I'd say it's very hard because there's so many external influences. So that's a nice ecosystem. That's a blessing. I'm going to throw a shout out to your dad or mom. That's cool.
Yeah.
Yep.
Don't be outworked. And my dad was a math teacher, and I'm dyslexic, so that was a trick. It's like, and they didn't know what that was, so they're like, But my mother was the one that said, look, you're not stupid. You maybe don't read as well as anybody else in the class, but you just got to work harder than everybody else. So that's where the work ethic came in.
Where was your first job in the industry? Where was that?
Okay, so I took a lot of grief for this. So when I was in film school, there was one feature film company in Dallas, and it was called Mulberry Square Productions, and they made Benji movies. Now, Benji was a dog, and so
I remember.
Yeah, the first Benji movie, I think, cost like $300,000, and it made like $40 million, and that was the only game in town. And I was in film school, and I got an opportunity to check out this company, and when they were doing a movie in Arizona, and I went and saw them. I was the observer, and it was a really cool situation because the people that I met on that movie, one guy was the DGA trainee, which is a Directors Guild trainee. His name was Mark Johnson. Now, Mark Johnson wound up being Barry Levinson's producer, won the Academy Award for Rain Man. The second assistant director was a guy named Jonathan Singer. Jonathan Singer wound up being a producer and won the Academy Award for producing The Elephant Man with David Lynch. So you look at this and you go, okay, these are the people that I first gravitated to, that I first met, that they thought I was some punk kid from Dallas, Texas, like rich kids guy like coming in because the investor said, "Oh, Matt Earl, go check out this movie." But I mean, I was like the poor kid from Dallas. I wasn't the rich kid. I just happened to have a summer job at a place called the Dallas Country Club, and that's where the rich people hung out. Right. That's how I paid my way through school. So by working at that company, I went and said, "I'll work for free." They go, "Well, we like the sound of that." So, I was willing to knock on the door and say, "I'll work for free," But the issue that is, and they wound up paying me minimum wage. And so what would happen was I'd go to classes at SMU, and then in between classes, I'd literally go over to the production company and like fill up the Coke machine and deliver the snacks and deliver the mail and go run the errands. And then at night, I would go work in editing because I knew how important editing was because I was in school. And so when I was working in editing, my friends at college would go, "Dude, you're making dog movies." And I go, "Yeah, but it's the only game in town, and I'm working in editing, and you try to make that dog look like it's actually doing something. That's called a skill set."
Oh, yeah.
Now, the issue was that several of my friends in school that, gave me a hard time for making dog movies all thought they were going to come out and be the next Steven Spielberg. Well, I'm not sure many of those people are still in the business, but this is a career I've had. So the bottom line is you do what it takes. You start where you need to start. And like, that was a great job for me.
Sure.
This guy, Joe Camp, was the owner of the company, and he was a director, producer, and wrote these binging movies. And like, I'm like still wearing cowboy boots off the Dallas, Texas boat and like flying the Concorde to the south of France to do these movies in Europe. And I'm going, this is a pretty good life, man.
Yeah.
But after a while, for working there for 3 years, it was time to move on. Either I move to New York or LA, and I don't really like cold weather, so I moved to LA.
How did you know it was time to move on?
I felt like, I was the associate producer and the editor, with my friend Leon. And basically, I just decided, okay, I'm a big fish in a small pond here. I will continue working for this company and doing what I'm doing, or I got to get really serious about my career. And like I say, but having trained with that company shooting in Europe, where the assistant directors were directors in training, I thought, okay, I'd move to LA, become an assistant director, and work my way up. Didn't quite work out that way. What happened was I fell into being an assistant director, worked with a lot of great directors, learned a lot. I wouldn't give up that time in the trenches, the cinematic trenches, as I call it, for anything, because I learned so much. I mean, you stand next to a Clint Eastwood or a Steven Spielberg, you're going to learn a hell of a lot about directing. And so because of working with all those big directors, and I was their assistant director, I was able to segue into directing second units. Which mainly,
what is that?
Second unit is mainly, normally it's the action stuff. But I got lucky in that, I'm not a stunt guy. I would go into these meetings when I got a good reputation as a second unit director. I'd go into these meetings with the producers, and I would say, look, I cannot throw a guy down a flight of stairs and guarantee I'm not going to break his neck. But you hire me a stunt coordinator, and I guarantee you my footage in my second unit will match the first unit, and it'll be seamless. It'll look like I'm making one movie.
Sure.
We're making one movie. I'm not going to go off and make my own movie. I'm going to make your movie, and I'll study what the director's doing, and I'll work with that. Sometimes I get the job. Sometimes I go, well, just hire the second unit director will be the stunt coordinator. I said, great. You save some money. You didn't get me. But where I lucked out is that I kept working with a lot of the same directors, and I would be able to splinter off and do little scenes here and there. I can't really schedule this, boss. Why don't I take a B camera and we'll go off with the actors and we'll do this little scene for you. So I was able to build up some footage there. My big break came when I had AD'd for Mel Gibson on a couple of movies, and then when Braveheart came along, he asked me to direct the second unit for him on Braveheart. So that was kind of my big break.
He asked you.
Yeah.
How did he find you?
Well, I was his assistant director. I did a movie called Forever Young with a director I'd worked with several times. And then halfway through that movie, Mel took me out to dinner and asked me to be his assistant director on his first movie that he directed, which is a movie called Man Without a Face. small little movie. And that was great for me, too, because we were shooting in, I don't know if you know the movie, but Man Without a Face is about a teacher who got like in a horrible accident. Half his face got destroyed. So Mel would come in to makeup and be in the makeup chair for like 3 hours a day. So I would show up with him and we'd go through the scene, and then I'd go with the DP and we'd set the scene up. So as a future director, it was great because he'd just drop in and go, "What do you got?" And I would like show him what I have, and he would like just kind of drop himself into it. So I got to work with the actors and work on that movie more like as kind of a director in training. So when Braveheart came along, I directed a lot of movies, a lot of second units from that point with different directors like Penelope Spheris and other people who'd helped me out, Steve Surgic. And so when Braveheart came along, he knew that that's the direction I was heading, so he just asked me to direct the second unit.
I want to touch on something you said, and I think people who are watching this, I want to emphasize that point because it really resonated with me when you were talking about how you were making these dog movies.
Yeah,
they were editing them, right? And it's not so glorious, but I think it's twofold, right? One is like it's about being humble. It's about being like, when you're starting out, there's nothing, you shouldn't feel like, you just got to do what you got to do. You know what I mean? You just got to pay your dues and you just got to do it until somebody gives you an opportunity. Because I think just sometimes being there is half the battle, and just showing up, doing all those little things, like you said, like, delivering the mail, filling up the Coke machine.
Willing to do anything.
Willing to do anything, yeah. And then the second thing is like, and maybe at the time, maybe you didn't realize this, but it's like hindsight 2020. It's like the skills to edit a dog movie, the fundamentals, it still applies to like a regular movie, right?
Absolutely.
So it's just like when you think about that skill set, the fundamentals is still there. You know what I mean? So like I also try to like think about like those things. It's like, where am I in my career, where I want to go, and what are the skills that will get me there.
Right.
And it doesn't matter if you're doing it for a dog movie, in your case, or something else, like the fundamentals is still there. So you're still learning how to edit a movie and how to make something look good. Right?
Exactly right. Tell the story. I mean, it's funny. One of my heroes when I was in film school, I was really into editing, and one of my heroes was an editor named Dede Allen. And Dede Allen and Verna Fields were both up for Best Editing on the same year. Verna was up for Jaws, and Dede was up for Dog Day Afternoon. Okay? Two great movies. Now, Verna won, okay, because, I mean, you make the mechanical shark look like it's doing something great. But if you look at Dog Day Afternoon, it's brilliant. The way it's edited between the inside and the outside is about a bank heist and what happened inside and outside. And so years later, I got the opportunity. I directed the second unit on a movie called John Q. It was a Denzel Washington movie. Great cast, Denzel Washington and a bunch of really cool people. And Dede Allen was the editor. So in the movies back in those days, you watch it on film. And so at night, you go into the screening room. We were shooting in Toronto. You go in the screening room. And I'd always sit behind the director, who was Nick Cassavetes, and he would sit next to Dede Allen. So, the first unit footage comes up, and it's Denzel, it's brilliant, and all this stuff. And then my action stuff would show up. And I still remember this like it was yesterday. Dede Allen, one of my heroes, turned to me after my footage was up. She goes, "This is great. I can really use this." And I thought to myself, God, do you realize what you just said to me? You're one of my cinematic heroes, and you're telling me that my footage looks pretty good, It's the same thing when I was doing a series. I did a series called, several series, but I did a series called Extant for Spielberg, and I directed the second episode. It was a Halle Berry thing. And, to have Steven come down and be talking to me about my work, going, "This is great," because it just looks like an extension from the pilot, and it's like one big movie. And you're sitting there talking to this guy, and the bubble comes above your head. Do you realize that you're Steven Spielberg telling me my stuff is pretty good? You're my hero, dude.
Yeah, sure. That's the ultimate, like.
Yeah, you kind of go, yeah, I'm not bad.
Yeah. Super cool,
Man. Man, I'm just putting myself in that spot for a second. Like, that's got to be amazing.
It's pretty cool. You know, one of your main heroes is complimenting your work. It's like, oh, I guess I'm doing something right, you know?
Yeah.
Like I just got off of a Chicago fire, and it was like my 16th episode of the show. And the showrunner called me right before I got on the plane to go, because you usually get the script, you know, on television, and you get the script like literally like days, you know, a couple of days before you jump on board, because they're writing for all the whole series. So I remember she called me and she goes, Matt Earl, she goes, we are so grateful that you're doing this. You're the perfect director. It's a very emotional episode. You're the perfect director to do this story. I'm going, great. And I'm sitting there thinking to myself, dude, I put a lot of pressure on myself, but why don't you pile it on a little heavier, you know? But it worked out well. We just turned in the cut. You know, like I say, I just got back from Chicago doing a couple of added scenes, and we just turned in the cut, and everybody liked it. So, you know, as good as your last one. So there you go.
You know, fun facts, I got a buddy named Benjamin, and you know what I call him?
What do you call him?
Benji. I grew up with that movie.
Oh, that's so funny.
I'm not kidding. It's great.
Dude, that's before your time.
So Mel Gibson brought you to dinner, right?
Yeah.
And do you remember what he said to you as far as why he wanted you to work with him?
No, he was. It's interesting. What happened in that movie is that I was doing a second unit for Penelope Spears. I think we're doing Little Rascals or something. And I had this whole go-kart race to do, which was really cool.
Yeah, whoopee.
Yeah. And I remember that Mel was already in Scotland, scouting locations. You know, and I was still going back and forth between being a second unit director and an assistant director. So Mel called me and he says, look, he said, you know, we're shooting in Scotland and Ireland and, you know, in England. And he says, you know, we're going to have to go with an English assistant director because that's what they're used to and everything. And I said, okay. So he said, I'm not going to be able to hire you as the AD. And I said, okay, fine. And I thought that was in the conversation because I had read the script. He sent me the script, and I remember driving home from doing the second unit with Penelope. And I got him on he called me and he said, what do you think? And I listened to him go on and on and on about the story. And I said, what do you mean, what do I think? You're going to direct the thing. He goes, no, but I've only directed this one little movie. I'm like really nervous about this. It's a huge thing. It's a big epic thing. And I said, dude, man, listen to yourself. There's no one going to direct this but you. You know, you're so excited about it. And then, okay, I'll think about it. And 2 days later, he signed. So when he was in Scotland, he called me. He says, you're not going to be able to be my AD because we're hiring an English AD. And he hired this guy, David Tomlin, who's legendary. He did all the Indiana Jones movies. He did the Bond movies. He's a big deal. And so I got it. And so he said, okay. So I was getting ready to hang up. I thought that was in the call. And he goes, I got one other question for you. And I said, yeah, what's that? And he says, how about directing the second unit? I mean, he literally just, you know, like he laid it out there so well. It was perfect, the perfect joke. Yeah. Now, this is before Mel had some issues, and I certainly know the story of all that stuff. So, but you always look at people, how they treated you, and regardless of Mel's issues now and what he's been through and what he may still be going through, it's like I have a soft spot in my heart for Mel because he gave me that opportunity. You know, and
you gave him that opportunity.
Yeah,
because you talked him into doing it.
Well, what was really funny is that when the Academy Awards, the thing won like 5 Academy Awards, and I remember I was directing the second unit and AD in a movie called Chain Reaction, and we were in Chicago, and it was February, and it was horrible weather, and we had this scene where Keanu Reeves is running down Michigan Avenue, being chased by these cops, and then he runs up to the bridge. I mean, they have these drawbridges on Michigan Avenue that go up where the ships can come through. So I had like 3 people and myself strapped to the side of the Michigan Avenue bridge. We're literally hanging like this, and we're at 45 degrees. You know, and I'm watching. I got like 200 people in the street. I got 20 cops. I got Keanu running at me. And he runs up. What happens, he runs up the bridge as it's going up, and then he goes underneath the bridge, and because the cops are following him, and he winds up on Lower Wacker, which is an under the bridge thing in Chicago. And I remember my second AD, Ken, was down the street, and he goes, hey, just won Best Director. Mel just won Best Director. And I went, great. And there was a long pause, and he goes, he didn't mention you. And I went, okay. And then about 5 minutes later, he goes, hey, just won Best Picture. No one mentioned you.
Oh my gosh. Come on.
But I know that I know I did the work. He knows I did the work. So there you go.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Man, what a cool story though, because you literally changed the trajectory of probably of his life, right? You gave him that empowerment that he needed.
You know, it's interesting. And when we did the movie, I remember one time we had shot in Scotland, and they had really horrible weather in Scotland. So one of the sequences I'm most proud of, because if you look at Braveheart, it's a love story. It's a man and his wife, a man and his country. If you take off all the battles, which were epic, it's still a love story. So one of the scenes that I got to really clean up, which is great because people think it's first unit, but it was actually a lot of my work, was the fact that it's right when, I don't know if you're that familiar with the movie, but he comes back, and Mel comes back into town. Wallace comes back into town right after they killed his wife. And all the British think he's going to give up, and then he doesn't. He creates a lot of havoc. So because the weather was so bad in Scotland, they couldn't finish the scene. So they would go on. We were in this little area called Fort William, Scotland, and they would go across the river to start doing this wedding scene. And I would get to clean up that scene, which was pivotal for the character to, start on his journey, because he was very anti-war, and then he started on this journey because they killed his wife. So I would be over there, setting up the shot, and we'd put, Mel's stunt double on the horse, and he'd ride through, and we'd kind of throw it out of focus. And Mel would come over during lunch, and he would go, so what do you got? What do you got? And I'd show him the playback, and I'd go, yeah, here's this cool shot. And he goes, oh, that's great. And I said, it's a good shot, but it will wind up in your movie if you get your ass on the horse. So during his lunch break for the next few days, he would jump on, and I'd have the assistant director, David, on the other side of the river calling me, going, Matt Earl, I need my director back. Let's go. But I was cleaning up the scene, and that's the way the scene wound up in the movie.
How do you know to think of that stuff?
How do I what?
How do you know to think of those things? Where does that come from?
It's just experience. I look at it and going, yeah, this movie is cool. The shot is cool, but it's better if he's actually on the horse doing it himself. Then I will be able to get a closer shot.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm talking in circles here.
Hell, this is, oh no, dude, it's like I'm watching.
Hopefully you can edit this thing, because it's kind of going off on a tangent.
It's like I'm watching a movie right now. This is great.
That's funny.
You want to hear something funny?
Please.
When you said like, hey, being a director is the hardest part about being a director is just getting out the van.
Yeah, getting out of the van in the morning.
Yeah, so I've been on a few commercials as a talent, and what I notice in my metaphor of like a director stepping out of a van is like literally like a general going to battle, where people are like, hey, we got enemies over here, like what should we do? Right. Oh, we got like the weather's not great, like what should we do? It's just like a bunch of people coming at you and you got to make decisions.
Absolutely.
They're like, hey, maybe the lighting's not great, what do you think we should do? Should we move the shot? Should we like repurpose it for something else? And
right.
Like you got all these people come at the prompts didn't come, or so and so is running late, right? It's just,
you got to be ready for the curveballs.
Yeah. It's like literally, and they're just like you said, you got to stay calm, and you got to be a problem solver. You got to, be even kill, and you got to be quick with those decisions.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what that, when I was ADing for Eastwood, he figured out the way I ran the set that my goal was to direct, not to be an AD, but he realized just the way I ran the set. And so he would say, so you want to be a director, huh? I said, yes, sir. I mean, I was just trying to be the best damn assistant director the guy had ever had. And some of my mentors were his assistant directors, so I knew I had big shoes to fill. So I would say, absolutely. Yes, sir. He's asked me a direct question. So then he would start giving me little tidbits. Like I said, come in with a game plan. Know the plan will tell the story, but if the guy handing you a cup of coffee has a better idea, then go, thank you. I'll take that idea, Because you can't come in, as a director, you can't come in with all the answers. Because it's a moving feast, Like you said, things go wrong. Yeah. The set could fall on the lead actor. What do we do? Yeah. All right, well, he's going to the hospital. Why don't we jump over here and do this? You just got to keep the ball rolling,
And it's yeah, it's about being humble enough to be able to listen to somebody who maybe just an assistant, right? And that just I think that's just good leadership, because I see that in companies too, where sometimes there might be people who are resistant to listen to somebody who is at a low rank, because they're like, what does that person know? But actually, those people are who are on the ground doing the work, or they might see something that you may not see, and you should at least consider it, at least listen to them. But
absolutely. I mean, and ultimately, as a director, it's your decision. I mean, I always come in, like say, I always have a really good time working with the camera crew, because I'll set everything up and I'll say, here's the idea. And then, the camera operator will maybe set the shot up, and you look at it and you go, what do you think? And they go, good shot. I go, yeah, how can we make it better? So you actually empower them to help you make it better.
wow, yeah, that's great.
It's just like say everybody wants to be involved, and ultimately, if the camera operator says, "Great, why don't we put the camera on the ground?" and like say once again, you have to know that story well enough to go, okay, you don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, so you say, okay, that's a good idea. Maybe it won't work in this scenario because I want to tell the story right here in the guy's eyes. If I'm on the ground, I'm not going to be able to get in his eyes. And that's the story I want to tell today, because that's what the scene's about.
But the way you do it is you don't shoot down their ideas, because when you shoot it down, then they feel hurt. Then they don't bring new ideas, right?
Exactly right. You want to empower everybody. And I think that, like I say, I have a reputation for being in the position to really collaborate with people.
Yeah. And I'm sure that you've probably worked with directors that were very like my way or the highway. Right?
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
Yeah. I've
Sounds miserable.
Yeah, I've seen some, movies not be as good as they could be because of the collaboration wasn't there,
This is the second time in about 6 weeks I've heard of this theme. I listened to another podcast from the Nelk crew, Nelk, and they had Trump on their podcast, so they spent a good bit of a day with him. And, he's very successful. He's at the top of the pyramid, and they noticed that he asks everybody for their opinion that he talks with on a day-to-day. Like everybody, no matter what position. Now, mind you, this is not a political podcast. This is not a support for any politicians.
It's got to say, you're not going to get my hell yeah on that guy.
No,
sorry.
And that's why I clarified it in there. Yeah, but to your point though, just being open-minded, getting everybody's opinion, because you never know when genius is going to strike.
That's right.
That's good. That's good. How many people, as a director, do you typically talk to when you're on set? How many people report to you per se?
I don't know, 50 or 60.
What?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Everybody comes in with, they're like, say, the guy handing you a prop, what do you think about this piece of paper or that piece of paper? Well, okay, yeah, let's go with this one. That guy's got an assignment. The costume designer, what do you think about this tie compared to that tie? Okay, let's go with that one. You constantly are answering questions, and I think that a lot of young directors are not ready for the bombardment of questions. I mean, I look at prep as like a necessary evil. Pre-production is the hardest part, because then you're kind of figuring everything out. I'm the guy that people like say, I want to go to Chicago. People go, oh, Matt Earl, there's a lot of great restaurants in Chicago. I say, yeah, I don't get out much, because on the weekends when everybody else is out, relaxing or having a good time, going to those great restaurants, I'm on the set with my script, trying to play all the different parts, trying to figure out what I need to do to tell that story.
So you have your coaching hat on. You're creating the playbook, so to speak.
Exactly.
And then game day is the moment you step out of the trailer.
Yeah, I mean, you step out and you know, like I say, that this game plan will work, and then that gives you the confidence to open it up for collaboration.
Dang. Well, that's fired up. No, that's super cool. It's like you want to see a master in their craft. That's how it's done. You prepare during the weekend. You're not going out for dinner.
No. I'll go to Whole Foods and make my own dinner or something like that.
Well, movie making is like a team sport.
It is.
It's like you get the head coach, but then it's a collaboration. It's like, hey,
100%.
We're seeing a lot of things that the defense is doing. Maybe we should run this play, right? It's just like everybody's like talking, and everybody's like how can we make this the best possible movie, right?
Right.
And hopefully on time and on budget.
Is it a positive environment usually, or is it stressful, or is it somebody?
I think a movie set, TV set is very much a microcosm of how people react under pressure. And it's funny, when I was coming up through the ranks as a production assistant, as an assistant editor, you see how I used to feel there's some people that don't react under pressure very well. They get into the yelling, screaming bullshit. And I used to look at the people getting yelled at and go, God, I really feel sorry for those people. And then I changed my perspective. I went, I feel sorry for the person yelling because obviously they've got some shit going on in their life that they need to take it out on this person here. Come on.
Let's tap into that for a second. Have you almost ever became that person?
What, the yelling, screaming? No. When I was an assistant director, I ran a very tight ship because I would take a bullet from my team as long as my team was backing me up. And if there was a problem on the set, if like the actor didn't come out of the trailer or the actor didn't do this or get this right or get to the set late or whatever, I would always just tell the people, I said, it's my fault. Because it was something to do with my team, I would say is my fault.
Right.
Now, I knew it wasn't my fault, but like you said, it's a leadership thing.
Yeah.
You say, okay, can we just move on? Or we can argue about it, or we can just move on and get the shot. He's going to be a few minutes late. My fault. And it wasn't my fault. I was on the set. But you take a bullet for your team, and then you tweak the radio to another channel, and you go, okay, what the fuck just happened?
Sure. Sure. Yeah.
Come on, man. So I was tough on my team, but there's a whole group of very successful assistant directors who are now producers, and they call themselves Beesley's Army because I was very tough on my team because they knew I'd take a bullet for them.
Dang.
But by the same token, those guys continued to work for me because they're Beesley's Army.
Dang. They don't teach you that stuff in school.
No.
So were you always in leadership?
Yeah.
Where'd that all start?
Yeah.
Were you on a sports team growing up? Or?
I mean, I played football. I have a titanium knee because of Texas football, but,
That'll do it.
doesn't help me with my pickleball these days, but,
Sure.
No, but no, it's just something that's ingrained in me, I'd say coming up the ranks, you saw so many people that handled it incorrectly that you thought, okay, maybe I can do better than this, and it's about, you want people, because like you said, it's a team effort. You want people to put their best foot forward, and you want to create an environment that people want to succeed and people aren't afraid to give suggestions. And you can only do that by just asking them. So what do you think? How can we make this better? And I've been on shows sometimes where like I say, you're there on the weekends or you're there, in the hours you can other than going to meetings during the week and casting and everything else, location scouting. You go and you try to figure everything out. And sometimes you go, okay, I believe this is a way to tell this story, this scene, the way to block it. And then you get there on the set and, you do your finger cam by yourself on the weekends or whatever, all you can. But then when you get there and literally put a camera on it, it's like, wow, it didn't quite work out like I wanted it to or like I thought I was going to. So then you draw in from, because you've hopefully built up a lot of goodwill. You go, guys, my plan's not working like I thought it was. How can we make this better? What do you think? And then you pull everybody in and you come up with something that does work,
Well, I in my line of work, we have to work as a team. I work in M&A, and you work with teams, and there's a partner usually on each transaction, kind of like a director, and the ultimate goal is to ensure that the client's happy with the transaction and the advice that we're providing. So that's the goal. But there's definitely been cases where we got the job done, but the way we went and got the job done left a bad taste in my mouth, where I would think twice about working with these people again, right? Whether they kind of really just grinded you, or there was a lot of yelling when things didn't go right. So I think it's just like, to your point, like, the job needs to get done, right? The movie needs to be made at a high quality, but how you go about doing it, and how the people that are working for you at the end of the day, how do they feel? Because if they feel good and the job's good, then they will work more. They'll continue working with you. But you know, if you got the job done, but you also like didn't leave a good taste in other people's mouth,
right?
You know, this, you know.
Well, at a certain point in your career, you can pick and choose. You can say, it wasn't a great experience. I don't think I'll go back there.
Are you saying like when you're starting up, you don't really get a choice?
Yeah, you usually have to take the job that comes to you, you know?
Yeah, fair.
And literally, when I moved from Dallas, you know, working for that little company, to LA, I literally had to start over. I may have known these few people that I went, like the Mark Johnson, the Jonathan Sanger, and these guys. They didn't necessarily help me, but to hire me themselves, what they did do is they introduced me to people who would hire me. So you got to be humble, and you got to be willing to do anything. I mean, like literally a big fish in a small pond in Dallas, and now starting back over.
Sounds like the movie business is a lot about who you know, about relationships, right?
It is.
Yeah.
It is. And like I say, it's funny. I was talking to somebody the other day about going to parties, and then in Hollywood, a party is work.
It's networking.
You gotta go in, you gotta be on. So that's why I really enjoy going to events and parties with my wife, because it's not work. I can just kind of kick back and like meet everybody, and it's funny. People will ask me, like I kind of what we started out with. People say they'll meet me through my wife tomorrow, and they'll go, so Matt Earl, what do you do? And I know the minute I say I'm a filmmaker, then it will change the dynamic of that conversation. So I'll go, yeah. I'm a husband and a father.
Yep.
And he just sits there.
That's awesome.
And then they have to kind of, okay. Oh, what do I do for a career? Oh, okay. Because I know it shifts it, because I always want to put my wife out there for it, because these are her friends, her events, you know?
Yeah,
oh, that's great.
Yeah. That's a little smoke screen.
There you go.
Smart.
Well, it's just not, you know, I don't need the pat on the back. I don't need so what are you working now? You know, I mean, I know what I'm doing, and I love it, you know?
Well, there's a list out there, professionals versus amateurs, right? The amateurs want the reward. They want the accolades, all this stuff, where professionals are strictly focused on the process.
Right.
And how can they be better and better every day?
Right, exactly.
That's what it's all about.
What'd you do today that was better than what you did yesterday?
Yeah, exactly.
100%. I mean, I'm like I say, I'm a big Joe Dispenza fan, and Tamara and I went to one of the events, like a 10-day thing. It's like,
it was a long one.
Yeah, I mean, you look at these things and you go, wow, okay, so this guided meditation thing, this guy is like, it's your voice, it's your heart, and you go, oh man, really? Like, can I just kind of just focus on my meditation and not have this guy guide me through it? But then when you go to his retreats, you go, okay, wait a minute, there's something to this, you know? So every day I have this, it's funny, it used to be my routine, then it turned into my ritual, and then it just turned into who I am. So I get up every morning. My wife and I both do this. We get up. We have a cold plunge in the backyard. We hit the cold plunge. It's like 40 degrees. I hit it for 4.5 minutes. It's torture. But the minute I get out, I go, okay, I've accomplished something tough already. You know.
That's it.
And then you go and I do Qigong. I have this guy, Tristan Triscott, who's my Qigong guru, and he taught me Qigong. So I do Qigong. And then I lift weights, and then I do my meditation. There's a guy named Alex and Jen Hootie. They created this whole breath work thing. So I do the breath work with them, and then I do my Joe Dispenza. And this whole thing, it's the whole Kobe. I was a big Kobe Bryant fan. And Kobe used to say, you do not negotiate with yourself. You set your intention, and you do it. It's literally as simple as making up your bed before you leave the house. Do I want to make up my bed today? No. But I know if I do, if I have a good day or a bad day, I'll come back to the house and my bed will be made. It's like I accomplished something right off the bat.
Yeah, it's the little things.
Exactly. It's that's all it is, man. You know?
That's how you build your personal confidence score.
Yeah.
When you keep the commitments to yourself. Yeah.
100%.
So that cold plunge, you don't
Cold
want
plunge,
to do it.
It's torture. I hate
But
it.
you win
Yeah.
right out of the gates.
Yeah.
And then you get the
A
momentum.
couple of weeks ago, it was like 30 degrees here, and I got in the cold plunge and went, this is ridiculous. I'm not going to do it today. And then I realized as I'm sitting in the cold plunge, wait a minute. The water is actually warmer than the outside temperature. This is great.
Right.
Because there's 30 degrees out, and the water's 40 degrees, so fine.
Yeah.
I'm a big Joe Dispenza's fan, and he talks about how, you know, the mind, like your body is in charge of a lot of things. Like when you don't feel like doing something,
Mm-hmm.
and your mind should be in control of your body.
Right.
So when you do hard things, you're almost training your mind to be in charge,
Right.
not your body. Because your body's saying it's cold, I don't like this, but your mind's saying sit, stay, which is gonna 2 more minutes, right?
Right.
And it kind of just trains you to have that mental toughness. So when you're going through some stuff at work or in personal life, you're able to like more like regulate and just stay calm and be able to just see things clearly and just problem solve, right?
Exactly.
So I'm with you.
And I love his morning and night meditations, because the morning meditation, the one I do almost every day, is like, it's a new day.
Is it the
What are you going to do today?
Yeah, is it the one where he goes, feel the space around your head?
Yeah. And it's funny because you think,
Yeah.
what the hell? And then you actually read about the science behind it, and there's a very scientific thing, because it gets your head into certain spaces, and that's all you're thinking about. It's like, like I say, I used to think guided meditation used to drive me nuts, because like, this guy, can he just be quiet so I could just focus? But then he gets you through it, and as he's talking, you can drift off and do your own thing. Like I find I come up, with some brilliant ideas, knock on wood, brilliant, that's probably a bad word, about how to solve some problems when I'm doing those meditations that are guided. But then I'll just drift off. I won't really hear his voice. I'll drift off into my world, and then I'll come back. Oh, okay, now I'm back with this,
You tap into your subconscious.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly, which is somewhere, you want to kind of live in that world,
Yeah, your subconscious is pretty powerful. I mean, it's just like most of our consciousness is only like 10%, right? Like most of it is in the subconscious, and Joe Dispenza talks about that. And
Yeah.
how you can tap into it, and he also talks about like the right before you wake up, you get that 5 minutes of where it's like your brain is still in theta,
Right.
where it's super malleable. So if you're trying to reprogram yourself on a certain level, that's the best time to do it. So I actually every day morning I try to like either listen to some Joe Dispenza about, whether it's manifestation or some kind of thing about transformation, because I know at that stage my mind is the most malleable, and so it kind of like it becomes ingrained in me.
Mm-hmm.
Faster, because you're doing it during that sweet spot, right?
Yeah, because it's like right after you wake up, when you wake up and there's like maybe 5 minutes or so, your brain wave is still in the status phase, where it's still kind of like in transition between the subconscious and the conscious. So in that space, it's more malleable. So because a lot of times when you're conscious and you'd say, hey, I don't want to do X, Y, and Z, it doesn't always seep into the subconscious, because you want your subconscious to change, right?
Right, right.
So that's kind of the trick. So that's a hack that he discovered.
Oh, so
I don't know if you
there's
did
even
something
more
like that.
intention. There's even more intention to the
Right.
time you do it.
Right.
Darius swears by this too.
Yeah.
Did he ever tell you about his story?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, he was doing this exact meditation we're talking about.
Right.
Feel the space around your head.
Yeah.
And he said 2 nights in a row that he felt like this wave of energy through his body to where he started shaking uncontrollably.
Yeah.
What is that? It's amazing.
It's weird. It's bizarre. I'll do this breath work that Jen and Alex do. That it's like this breath work. You really dig in deep, and it's like all of a sudden you start crying for no reason, and then you start laughing. You go, "What? Why am I doing this?" And it's something that just hits you visceral on a physical level that you don't really know all the answers, but it just takes you to another place.
Yeah. Yeah. It's in short, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's funny, if you haven't been to an actual Joe Dispenza event, you've just listened to him, it seems a little like, what's this guy? But then when you go, it makes a lot of sense. Like we had this, it was this place in Denver, just outside of Denver, this resort, and there was like 2,000 people there. And literally at one time, it was in a meditation that started at 4:00 in the morning. And so you see all these people walk into this ballroom, and they got their pillows with them and their pajamas, and it's 4:00 in the morning, and everybody's getting up to do this. And then you start this meditation, and then all of a sudden you end it, and it's like 8:00 in the morning. You go, wait a minute, 4 hours just passed? What?
2,000 people.
Yeah, pretty amazing. So if you go to the events, it's like, I feel like I'm the guy for Joe, but it's a Dr. Joe, but there's something about going to the event actually brings it all into focus, where if you just listen to it, it's like, this guy's voice is a little weird, and what's he talking about? But there's a lot of science behind it.
So much science.
Yeah.
To where you got to do some research.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Man, what I'm seeing a pattern with a lot of my guests here that have reached, expertise in whatever they do. Right? Excitement is one of them. Right? The past maybe 4 episodes, that term's come up.
Oh, wow.
Serious, yeah. So I think it's good for everybody to reflect just for a second and think, are they doing what excites them?
Mm-hmm.
That's a huge, huge deal. And then meditation. Mm-hmm. People have brought that up so many times on this podcast, so there must be something there. Okay, so if you don't meditate, listeners, viewers, maybe check into it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Man, Matt Earl, this has been a very fired up, incredible landscape of a story you've been able to share with us today. Thank you. Well, seriously.
You're welcome.
You.
Hopefully it went okay. I'm like, this is my first podcast. I'm going, what do? I just answer questions, right?
Yeah. It's just a high level conversation because, man, we're talking about some really narrow, fine-tuned topics here.
Cool.
And this is what it's all about. Because you're sharing your story about where you came from, right? Your parents were your dad was a teacher.
Yeah.
Right? You said the chances of you getting where you're at today, but you found the excitement, step 1.
Right.
Step 2, you did whatever it took.
100%.
You're like, dog movie, don't care. It's one step in the right direction.
It's a movie.
I'm going to do it.
Right.
You did it. And then you followed the energy overseas.
Yeah.
Right? And then you trusted your gut and you said, now it's time to go to LA.
Right.
And then you just stayed on the same path. Put your head down, got to work, worked your tail off, and then sometimes you look up and, oh, here I am, top of the mountain.
Right.
But don't expect.
Well, there's always a
clip. And then you move, and then you keep moving the mountain. Slow raise, then you move the mountain. Yes, don't forget that piece.
Yeah.
Matt Earl, how do people get to know you more? Maybe you reach out or whatever you're comfortable sharing, website, Instagram, or anything. No, I know you're on IMDb.
Yeah. I got to update that thing. So, my website is mattearlbeesley.com, and it literally has not been updated in a while because I haven't needed to, but it'll show like several of the shows that I've worked on and stuff.
mattearlbeesley.com.
Yeah.
Pei-Hu Wang, thanks for stepping in. Appreciate it.
Pleasure, man.
It's been awesome. Folks, you heard it here first. Make sure to check out mattearlbeesley.com. And this is the Elite League podcast. You certainly fit the mold. You're expert at your craft, right? You've dedicated your life to this one thing, and it shows. Nice job. Make sure to smash that subscribe button, hit that thumbs up, and most importantly, everybody, stay fired up. Till next time. Cheers.